Everyone's talking about what is the horsepower of the 2020 GT500. Well, I think I've got it figured out, and the leaked document says that it's going to make 720 horsepower. That's not accurate. I've got some data to prove it. Let's talk about it. If you're new to the channel, go ahead and hit the subscribe button and hit the bell notification to stay updated. Now, everyone's talking about this car, how much power it's going to make. Everyone thinks it's going to make 800 horsepower. The document that's been leaked says it's going to make 720, and there's been a few good cases made for that. And that's what I thought too until I found this document over at svtperformance.com. This actually comes from the Ford Performance Engineers, straight from the horse's mouth. And let's dive into the information. It's going to make more than 720. I think I figured out how much power it's going to make. The engineers have not released the horsepower because they are tweaking the engine.
That's interesting. No, I'm excited. Now, one thing we didn't know, it's more a sub 11 second. It is over 700. So we're still, it remains to be seen for the exact numbers, right?
Right. You know,
okay.
We're relentlessly dedicated to crafting the most extraordinary GT500 we can. And so we got until this fall. So we didn't want to give you guys like a tweener number.
Sure.
The guys are still working on it.
They are tweaking the engine. They're trying to make more power than the Hellcat redeye. And they're trying to make not more power, but they're trying to make it faster than the Hellcat redeye, should I say. And they have made it faster than the Hellcat. I'll show you in this video. I'll show you why you guys are wrong about the 720 horsepower estimate. That's inaccurate. That is old numbers. That was released a long time ago, and that's why they haven't released the numbers yet. They're tweaking it. They're tweaking it. They're tweaking it. All right. So let's talk about the engine. It is a 5.2 liter, as we know, cross-plane crank V8. It's going to have a 2650 Eaton supercharger on it. It's going to have forged rods. You know, we can talk about all this stuff. It does have the DCT that shifts within 100 milliseconds. You know, the DCT is going to be the fastest shifting transmission available. You're not going to have any problems with upshifts or downshifts. This engine's going to have instantaneous torque. Now, why is the horsepower important? Horsepower is important because, you know, as a Ford owner and a Mustang enthusiast, you want it to be faster than the Hellcat. Hellcat just bumped up the horsepower from 707 to 717 for this year. And then they came out with a redeye, which makes 797 horsepower. But here's the catch. That car actually is heavier. It weighs 4,400 pounds, okay? So they've added power. It's also heavier. It's got a bigger blower and some other stuff. So basically, that car runs 1080s at 131 miles an hour. Why is that important? Because we have numbers for the 2020 GT500 Trap and ET. So let's just look at it. If you calculate the redeye power to weight ratio, it's at a 1.79. So if you take the horsepower 797 and divide it by 4451, you get a 1.79. Okay. Now, if you look at the engineers over at SVT Performance, quote, I've been told Ford Performance Engineers have run a 1080s with traps over 133 miles an hour. So let's just say it's 1080 at 133, okay? If you take the factory rating on that leaked spec sheet from months ago, it's at 720 horsepower, curb weight 4,200 pounds. Now, if you do the power to weight ratio on that, you divide 720 by 4,200, you get a 1.7. That's lower than the redeye. It would be slower in the trap speed, right? Even if you take off that big wing that causes a lot of downforce, which would lower the trap. Okay, so let's assume they don't have that wing on there when they're doing these test runs, and this car makes 720 horsepower. It's actually going to have a lower power to weight ratio, which means it would be slower than the Hellcat redeye, but it's not. It's faster than the Hellcat redeye. That's why I think these numbers are inaccurate. This is old numbers. Like I said, the engineers even said they're still tweaking at the Detroit Auto Show. So that's an old number. That's inaccurate. This car is going to make a lot more power. So let's just break down the numbers. Let's say it makes 740 horsepower. You divide that by 4,200, you're going to 1.75. That's still lower power to weight ratio than the redeye. All right. Let's say you go 760, divide that by 4,200, you have a 1.78 power to weight ratio. That's basically similar or exactly the same as the redeye, 1.78 versus 1.79. I think this car is going to make somewhere between 750 horsepower, possibly underrated, up to 775. Now, if it's 775 horsepower, it's going to have a power to weight ratio of 1.83, which would be better than the Hellcat redeye. That's how I see it making this much power. That's the only way that this car is going to be trapping higher trap speed by 2 miles an hour is significant. As your miles per hour increase in the quarter mile, it takes more horsepower to go faster at those higher speeds. Does that make sense? So as you go faster, it takes more power to go faster because you're pushing against that wind. You're pushing against, the front of the car. It's not linear. As you go faster, it doesn't take, it's easy to make a slow car go fast. As the car gets faster, it's harder to make it go faster. You need more power to push it through the wind, basically. So I'm guessing that as they were tuning this car, they're trying to make it go faster and faster and faster, make more power. They're competing with the Hellcat redeye. And based on the power to weight ratios, this car is making somewhere between 750 and 775 horsepower in order to make that 133 mile an hour trap speed. And I think this is all accurate. I think those numbers are old. I think they're constantly trying to get this car as fast as the redeye or competitive to that car. The other catch is this car is going to be a do everything car. You're going to be able to take it down the quarter mile, run 10-second quarters with a high, trap speed. You're also going to be able to go to the road course. It's got lots of coolers, so you're going to be able to compete with the other competitors, the ZL1, 1LE, and other track-oriented vehicles. And so that's my take on the power. I don't believe it's going to have 720 horsepower. I don't see how it could run 133 mile an hour trap speed based on its curb weight. Now, that curb weight could be inaccurate, and they could have been testing that car with less weight in it, but that's my take on it. It's gonna have to make more power in order to run that 133 mile an hour trap speed. So guys, let me know what you think in the description below. Do you think it's making over 720 horsepower? Do you think that here's a few things that could be happening. This information from Ford Performance Engineers could be inaccurate, but remember those videos where we did see it testing at the quarter mile and people were asking about GT500, if this is the GT500, and they wouldn't tell us? Now, the trap speeds could be wrong. The weight that they're testing this car could be different, but I think that the reason that the horsepower is rated at 720 is that's what the estimates were at the time, and they threw that out there, and that's fine. But now they're raising the horsepower to compete with the redeye. That's how it's trapping 133 miles an hour. So guys, if you want the latest Mustang and automotive news, go ahead and hit the subscribe button, and I will keep you updated. If you want 10% off your Mustang parts, go to lethalperformance.com, use code Tiesler, Tiesler, put it in the description below. Let me know what you think in the comments, and be sure to subscribe for the latest leaked Mustang and automotive news.